This is Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. You're looking at a spooky phenom of electricity racing through water. And the reason that we're covering this today is because millions of people are being exposed to electrified water sources due to municipal water distribution. And it just takes, some juice on the pipes anywhere on the network, and it all becomes electrified. And so we're not going to bore you with the electrodes on the faucet, but this is a situation that is happening right now. And, what it does to livestock is plain and simple. It kills cows, sheep, causes deformities, mutations, and the like, cancers. Electric fields aren't anything to laugh at. We're going to be talking about this extensively as possible in this broadcast. Now you'll notice that there are black lines racing through the video during some of these discharge events. Now you'd be surprised to learn that X-rays were discovered by pumping electricity through a glass tube. They call that a Crookes tube, much like a light bulb, except the filament and the voltage is a little higher. But undoubtedly the person that's taking this footage is exposing themselves to something here. And they undoubtedly know that, because this page is incredibly insightful. And some Ukrainian scientists. In any case, we wanted to look at some of their experiments and other experiments. It's going to be some Mr. Wizard, MacGyver kind of stuff, but it has quite a bit of impact on our understanding as far as electric fields go, and how radio frequencies are modulated. And really that, radio frequencies, EMF, and all of that stuff is, something else, ladies and gentlemen. But there's really two components, maybe three components to a radio wave. There's the electro component, the electric field, the magnetic field. It's called the H field for some of those ham radio experts out there. And then you've got the photon, because remember, EMF is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So we've got electrons and photons combining somehow to make this radiation that propagates like ripples in the pond. And look, this guy is putting an electrode into a bath of oil. Oil seems to be rather conductive, like water, but it holds the charge. Oil is really interesting as far as its properties, not only to lubricate and transfer heat away from a source, but also to carry a charge. Now, we could spend quite a bit of time on electromagnetics and static charges and polarity, and for something to become ionized or polarized, basically one side is positive and the other side is negative. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? You're going to have to do your own research on that, but it's basically like a coin, heads or tails, and atoms, molecules, matter, liquid, gases, all of that can polarize or ionize. That's why they call it the ionosphere. The sunlight coming into the upper atmosphere ionizes all of the the molecules and atoms there, and so it becomes the ionosphere, and a slightly different variant of matter that we find at a normal state. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about what this guy is doing, as well as the concerns about electricity in your water. We've been looking at quite a few cases of livestock being killed by rogue electricity, grounded electricity that's traveling through the ground. I mean, you've heard of the ground, right? And usually it's plugged into the ground. Well, that electricity doesn't just, dissipate necessarily into like perfume. right, where it just kind of spreads out evenly into a mist or into a cloud underground. It can travel like lightning bolts underground, and it loves, fissures and other phenoms that you find in geology class. And it'll travel along these conductive highways more so than others. And, we're seeing cows that just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Moo cow, their pasture's set up along one of these superconducting underground highways. And they're consistently getting zapped, drinking water that's zapped. And it basically polarizes, their body, their cells, and it breaks down important metabolic pathways. Now, what's important about this experiment, it might seem like this guy is spraying air, but it's electricity. And how we got the oil to be polarized, is a long story. But in any case, it's electrodes running from, one cup to another, or, in a bowl. And what's really interesting is you can start seeing basically the fingerprints of the electric field. Electromagnetics is really mysterious. And the way we kind of look at it, if it helps you at all, is that when you're thinking of a normal dipole magnet of, north and south, positive and negative, the electrons are shooting out of the negative end, and they're being sucked in like a vacuum by the positive end. And this creates like this torus type of field where you've got basically, a pulsar on one side and a black hole on another. Makes you wonder if our pulsars aren't somebody else's black holes. But that's another story. Now, in this experiment, as they are polarizing or magnetizing the oil, it is carrying an extensive charge, like a capacitor in a certain sense. But maybe that's not the best terminology. In any case, you can see, I think we've got some, this is basically, you can see the fingerprints of the electric fields. And so this is what you're getting sprayed with by antennas, cell phones, Wi-Fi. It's this exact same phenom. Does this, you can't see it, but if you could, it would look like this. And it's only because this oil has taken up, superconductive properties, like a superconductor, if you will, that you can actually see the waves. This is a very interesting phenom that we're witnessing here. One that should be almost taught in every science class. Kudos to these guys. We featured them years ago for our first Death Tower documentaries. In any case, this is a very interesting observation for what would be polarized. I think it's like sunflower oil or some kind of oil. Now, our bodies are made up of this somewhat, and you've got these oils and liquids in your body. In fact, when you think of the iron in your red blood cells, it's kind of like a ferrofluid, essentially. So just about every aspect of your life can be impacted by electromagnetic fields, and just because you can't see them or feel them doesn't mean that they're not having an impact on your physiology. And I think that's really kind of like what we're trying to get at. This story shouldn't be dismissed because you can't immediately identify with electrosensitivity. You just may not know what has been putting you in that mood, or messing with your reasoning skills or your memory or other functions. And if you've always grown up next to a death tower or a high power transmission line, well, you probably don't even know the difference between your world and the real world. So really hard to transmit these ideas to people that haven't been experimenting with electromagnetics. And I'll tell you, like, after getting the meter and finding situations, working with antennas and where the fields are rather strong, you can definitely feel it. You know, this isn't your imagination. This is why there are, you know, theoretical safety limits. But they're way, way, way above what research is telling us now. And the safety limits were put in place like in the 70s. It's kind of like, you know, this technology is bound to be like the next asbestos, the next glyphosate, you know, the next, you know, tobacco and the like. And they can deny, you know, the harmful effects. Now, you know, here's some fun facts for you. You know, just an electric spark or an electric arc like this creates radio waves. This will actually like interfere with any radio you have next to you. Impossible to get you know, a signal. Well, what's interesting here is that if you listen to this guy's a MacGyver too. You basically get sound coming out of the electricity. Listen to this. Now, this is because, you know, these frequencies are modulated, and we're not going to get into how an electric wave, you know, basically produces the sound waves. But the modulation of the, you know, radio wave or the carrier wave is similar to the pattern of the actual sound wave. And so, you know, some of that friction as it's passing through the air will cause ripples of that, you know, of that frequency, that sound frequency. But look, you know, this also kind of proves a very important concept that, you know, you can literally send voices and sounds through the air, not just, you know, like with a radio, but just through the electricity running through the air. You know, you can hear it if you're at the right electric field. Now, there's something to be said about electric fields, because when the electric field is at a certain strength, it actually produces an arc, and you can see the electrons flowing like a plasma ball. But where there isn't, you know, where the electric field hasn't reached that threshold where you can actually visibly see the arc, then we just call it an invisible electric field. And that's what you're picking up with, like, you know, the tri-field meter, for those that have the EMF 390 or others. Essentially, you're picking up the beginnings of an arc. And as you get closer towards the epicenter of that field, you know, the readings get stronger, and if it's strong enough, then an arc will actually, you know, show itself, manifest, if you will. But it's interesting because we're hearing, you know, we can hear the sounds from enough of this electricity together without, you know, special hi-fi electronics. Yesterday we were talking about a crystal radio that doesn't need to be plugged in. It's powered by the electricity in the air. And the electricity, the amount of electricity that's in the air is so high right now that you can light a light bulb with it. And I think we have a demonstration of that in this video. But here he's going to just flip the switch, and he's running a wire to a kite, and it's that copper wire from the kite that's picking up enough energy to light the LED. So, you know, and power the radio and the speaker. So that's what people are being exposed to non-stop. If it was more intense, you'd be seeing, you know, electric arcs in the air like it was a, you know, like an episode of Fringe or a sci-fi flick. Now, another reason that people should be concerned about, you know, the electrotoxicity of water, if you will, is that we're seeing these death towers on top of water towers, and they're electrifying, you know, the whole thing, because you got water, you got power cables running up along the water source or reservoir and the like, and so it's being constantly exposed to an electric field, to electrons and the like. Now, I know we got some more interesting videos that we want to feature if we can. Not sure where they've all gone. That's usually the way it goes. Oh yeah. You get what's going on now? So this is like a CB radio that they've just amped up to the point where you can see like a plasma ball forming on top of it. So this is like, you know, some heavy juice. And it's so heavy that it's impacting, you can see the lines from the waves on the, you know, on the footage. I mean, this is some severe stuff. People don't realize what they're being exposed to here. And it's rather, you know, phenomenal to think that people can just buy this equipment. But once again, when they're, you know, when they're pushing talk and they're juicing, you know, the line and sending out their transmission, you can actually hear it in the air around the antenna, no speaker required. So this makes you wonder, you know, what else, you know, are they transmitting into people's minds here? If these electrical waves, just, you know, standalone waves in the air, you can hear them. Imagine, you know, what something in between this and, you know, commercial transmissions could produce. Undoubtedly, you know, you've heard the stories of people, you know, the Manchurian candidates saying they heard voices. Well, what voices do you think they heard? So I don't know what's, you know, scarier here, hearing the voices from this electrical arc or seeing the lines, you know, show up on the video like this. And look, even if this was a, you know, 5-year-old video, this is having, you know, some effect here, and we're all being hit by this. The question is, what is it really doing? And from a biologist's perspective, the safest thing I can tell you is that if this stuff is killing cows and sheep and causing mutations and abnormal behavior in farm animals, then it must be having, you know, some similar impacts on humans as well. So the question is linking the actual, you know, diseases to this factor, to this cause. And until they have, you know, studies where, you know, basically, you know, like they did the cell phone studies where you've got a control group, they're not being exposed to anything, and then you've got groups that are being exposed to, you know, higher and higher doses. That's what they need to do. But they're covering up this. We're picking up this story from farmers across the world. In European countries, they're talking about this a lot more. Hundreds and hundreds of you know, livestock. Now, of course, in Europe, they don't have like the concentration camp farms, like for the most part, like they do in America. So these are like free range, you know, on a pasture, on a ranch kind of farms, and you know, they're talking about hundreds and hundreds, and in specific counties, you know, after either a cell tower or a wind turbine has gone up in their area because of all of the additional grounding that's being produced. And so it's kind of like, you know, burning, or, you know, the off-gassing from a fracking installation. Here, you know, instead of burning the electricity, they ground it into, you know, into the earth. But it still travels. And it leaves a residual charge. And that's something that we want to talk about as well. So, like, obviously oil, you can think to yourself, well, sure, I mean, that's going to be, you know, it's going to act like oil. And deep fry, you know, it's going to act like a superconductor, not only, you know, thermically, but electromagnetically as well. And again, you know, rather impressive to see the fingerprints of the electromagnetic waves hitting that oil. But I know we've got other footage of this nature. Hold on, let's see what else we can find. Okay, well, we've got this one at the radio tower here. Let's see. And so he's going to make the radio tower speak. Let's listen to this.
When you remove these right here, it's basically electrical current that's running through these. So we're just going to take this one right there. Woo!
I love that. I love that. So, look, you know, there's no telling what kind of impacts this is having on people, but scientists are starting to lay out symptoms you've got all sorts of diseases of the immune system, white blood cells, leukemia, and the like, associated with high electric fields. This is well known, in fact, the link between leukemia and high-power transmission lines. Now, the thing to remember about radio towers is that the laws of thermodynamics still apply. The energy that they put in to this broadcast tower is the energy that comes out as waves. And this is a 12 kilovolt system, and the like, very similar to the transmission lines. And these things are known to cause cancer. And the death towers are worse than this. We're getting much worse readings from death towers than AM, FM, TV transmission towers. But that's another story. I know we had some other stuff that we want to talk about. Here is some tests that you can conduct with a voltmeter, seeing if your plumbing is electrified or well grounded. And there's issues that spring up in individual homes, but also municipal water supplies, as well as reservoirs and water towers, storage facilities. And this surcharge of electricity in the water, obviously is going to polarize your organism, but also have some toxic effects on your, on your health. We were going to talk about other diseases related to long-term electromagnetic exposure. Immune system is definitely one. Increased cancers of the brain, thyroid, and the like. But there's also, issues related to just, regular headaches, insomnia, trouble concentrating, memory problems, and the like. A long list of known side effects from this exposure. And this is completely omitted by the FCC. They hear the people and the scientists talk about it, but they completely look the other way, like you're not even there. And that's why we recommend everybody get a meter, see what is actually going on in your neighborhood, tell your neighbors, start going to the city council, start making noise. More people will join in, because this is something that concerns everyone. Even the libtards, living on 6th Avenue, are going to want in on some of this, because nobody wants to be exposed to this eugenics program. And the studies are rather clear. EMF 390, made in the USA, delivers worldwide. Get yours today. Only $109 from GQ Electronics, our affiliate program. The link is in the description. They sell them on Amazon for $119, so you can go there, spend a little bit more, or you can get them from us direct from the manufacturer. You order directly from them, and it ships out next day after that. Get it in about 2 days, and there you go. That's pretty much it. Use the coupon code STFN. You get an extra 5% off. What about that? You definitely want to know what you're getting exposed to and limit your exposures. It's no joke. I've got some other videos here. Obviously, we're looking at the eugenics program, the Skynet, the deployment of 4G, 5G. These death towers are everywhere, and they're aiming them at people. Ladies and gentlemen, they're aiming them at people. They're aiming them at choke points during your commute. They're aiming them at parking lots, churches, schools, playgrounds. You want to sweep your schools. You want to sweep where your people go, and try and convince them of the numbers. Now look, math and science isn't for everyone. You can't save everyone out there, but you can save yourself. And normally a meter runs like $400, $1,000. If you're going to get something comparable in terms of accuracy. The gigahertz solution, $1,000 with the whole antenna and everything. You got to get a suitcase. The MF 390 fits in your pocket. You can put it in your GPS cradle support thing that you got going on the dashboard, and cruise around with it. Literally fox hunt death towers on your way to wherever you're going. It's an eye-opening experience, and you'll see the death traps for yourselves. Gas stations, schools, it's like, and the sheeple don't even know. And the reason they don't know is because most meters are really expensive. And you can get an El Cheapo at Home Depot that only does electric and magnetic fields, but it won't pick up what these death towers are putting out there. So you might as well, suck in the fumes a little bit more. But look, the future of Skynet and the like is going to depend on its communications grid, on the 5G. So if we can stop 5G, we stop Skynet. It's a win-win. Get people involved. It's hard to find real people out there these days. They're mostly zombies. Don't waste your time with the zombies. There's no such thing as being asleep out there. People are like, oh, they're sleeping. No. They've been body snatched by the demonic. And you've got a lot of homicidal people out there. You can see the shit grin on their face while they're telling you, oh yeah, we love the cell tower right next door. It's wonderful for our new broadband. And you can see like they're happy everybody's getting dosed. Some people just want to watch the world burn. Look, don't waste your time trying to wake those people up. They're already awake. They've chosen the other side. They're dumping the fluoride in your water. It's got the skull and bones, right on it. They know what they're doing. All this stuff is known to be toxic. They know what they're doing. It's not your imagination. You have to avoid the mines in the minefield. That's your responsibility out there. So, we were just looking for a meter for ourselves. We found the EMF 390. It's by far the best unit for the price. And you can sync it to your computer, track your exposure over weeks, use it as a dosimeter. This is an excellent instrument and blows away the competition, hands down, with all the things that you can do with the EMF 390. Check it out in the video description. You'll be glad you did. I know we've got more content that we want to cover, like some of these water towers. Now they're, before is what they look like on the left, and now on the right, you kind of think maybe they've taken them down. But oh no, ladies and gentlemen, they've just put a cover on it, and so that you can't see it. They're, people are waking up, if you will, to these things, and now they're just trying to hide them from you. But there's no hiding from the truth, ladies and gentlemen. The truth will set you free. When you see, what electricity and water can do, and the impacts it has on livestock, you'll want to, avoid this angle of the eugenics as well. It's absolutely everywhere. You've got to be meticulous on everything: air, water, food, the basic necessities, because they're taking advantage of your complacency. You think it's safe because it's FDA approved. That's where they get you, with a false sense of security. You're like, oh yeah, they're looking out for your best interests. Hello, McFly. They're not looking out for your best interest at all. I know we've got another video that we want to talk about. It's hiding from us. It's annoying, but it must be out there somewhere. Maybe not. Doesn't really matter. With all the cancer clusters around schools and all these cell towers and broadcast antenna and the like, it's obvious, what these people are up to. We're going to continue talking about it because it's more fruitful and productive than talking about, the Russians did it, or, which Democrat is going to beat Trump and all that stuff. That's just bread and circus. They want you talking about, what the TV is talking about instead of talking about what they're really up to. So remember, the best lies are wrapped with truth. And so, they'll tell you what you want to hear and make up stories and just, buy time as they, continue with their eugenics program. So, quit playing video games out there. Start focusing on what matters most. And that's fighting back against this beast system. It's the pages of the Bible playing out before your very eyes. It's good versus evil out there, like it's always been. And, we need to act our part. We need to act accordingly. Remember who sent you out there, ladies and gentlemen. Until the next time, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.